everyone, this is Mary with the Synthetic Grass Store. This is video 3 in our artificial turf installation series. Today we're going to be covering the actual installation of the artificial turf. We're going to take you from everything from rolling the turf out to seaming and nailing. So step 1, when we show up to a job site, one of the very first things my guys do is they take that artificial turf that's rolled out, because it comes in big heavy rolls, and we unroll the turf, because these fibers are very crushed and they're very flat when you get it home. So we use the time while we're doing the video 2 process of the preparation of the base. We're using that time to help these fibers relax and expand, to make it easier for the installation process, everything from trimming to nailing to infilling. So step 1, we've got our turf rolled out. Then we're going to begin to go take measurements. I do want to make sure when I'm looking at my product, 2 things. I want to make sure I've got the proper amount of material. So I'm going to take that moment. I don't want to get down into this series and me not know, oh no, I'm short product. I want to make sure I've got enough artificial turf on hand to complete this installation. So I'm going to measure what the material is required, verifying my measurements. The rule is measure twice, cut once. So I've measured the actual backyard or front yard, whatever my application is. Now I'm going to measure the product that I have on hand. Once I've got the product all measured out, now I can go begin my cutting. Your tool that you're using when you're cutting is just a good old utility knife. You want to make sure you have good sharp blades. The backing is very strong on artificial turf. And as you're looking at your product, the product comes with what's called the salvage edge. The salvage edge needs to be trimmed off prior to installing. And usually, I always recommend you trim 2 stitch lines over. The product has been stored and it gets, kind of beat up while it's warehoused and trucked from destination to destination. So as I cut my product, I'm cutting in between the stitch lines. And I want to make a nice clean cut. And I've removed the salvage. And turf is directional, so I want to make sure as I'm piecing it to my other turf that it is always facing the same direction. You can see when I turn it around like this, you've got one panel facing you and you've got one panel facing me. Now sometimes that's the intention. You will see that in some applications. But as I've got my nice clean edges cut and ready to be seamed, I'm gently placing them together, and I know I've got it nice and neat and trimmed and ready for install. So as I begin the installation process, I've got my nails, and you can use different size nails. There are some videos and places you're going to watch that are going to recommend nails or staples. Some people use 6-inch nails. Some people use 3.5. And today I'm just going to use the 3.5-inch nail. Basically, we start. If this is my patio out here, we're going to start nailing at the back of the patio or at the back of the yard. We call it our anchor nails. When you're nailing, you do want to kind of separate these fibers. So separate the fibers so that you can nail. I'm going to use this to nail into. And I'm nailing 2 to 3 inches all along the side of the anchor space. And now I'm going to go back to my seam. So now I've got my seam, I've got my anchors into place. I'm going to begin to kick the product and stretch it as I'm putting a few anchor nails down. And I'm going to begin to work my seam. Again, separating those fibers and staggering my nails 2 to 3 inches apart all the way down my seam. I'm going to finish my nailing process by doing the rest of the perimeter. And the final step in the actual hands and knees part is just on your hands and knees, you're going and you're trimming. Sometimes when you put the seam together, if you accidentally butted it a little too close together, your fibers can mohawk. So you'll just want to come through and just gently trim those fibers. I also trim along the edges on my finished. I call it the Midwest look, when you take and you make it nice and look manicured. Now that I've got the turf is secure into place, my base work is complete, everything is looking good so far, I'm feeling confident. Now my next step is going to be my infill process. Depending on your application, in this scenario, we're going to use a regular 2-inch or 1 3/4 product. it's going to require, most manufacturers are going to spec 2.5 to 3 pounds per square foot of infill material will go on top of the product. And you're using a drop spreader, and we'll show you guys some actual images of this being done as well. But you're using your infill and you're sprinkling it into place using a drop spreader. You're wanting to make sure you're doing it in even passes so you don't get lumpy infill. There are specialty infills available as well, and we'll have a special video talking about infill options in artificial turf. But the main thing is the proper amount of infill per manufacturer's specifications. Now that I've got the infill drop spread, it's going to look like there's a bunch of white sand all over my install. Now I'm going to take my power broom and I'm going to power broom the product, and I'm going to make the sand fall into the fibers. You won't see the infill once it's broomed in correctly. And then the final step, blowing it off, making sure everything is all nice and clean, and hosing it down is your final steps in your artificial turf installation.